You're going to see some closed captioning here, which I'm starting right now. And if you want to remove those closed captionings, you can by clicking the arrow next to Live Transcript CC and selecting Hide Subtitle. This session is being recorded, so all chats are going to be recorded as well, and that includes private chat, so just be aware of that. And we will be emailing recordings of the sessions to anybody who registered to the conference. And as a reminder too, just be sure to mute yourself if you're not a speaker. We are going to be monitoring the chat, so you can enter any questions and comments there. And just be sure to use everyone when sending a chat to the group. So now I'm going to move on to our keynote speech, Our Bright Future, Opportunities in This Remarkable Time. And we're so pleased and honored to have Dr. John Cawthorn as our keynote speaker. Dr. Cawthorn is Dean of the Wayne State University Library System, which includes the university's School of Information Sciences. He has a PhD in managerial leadership in the information professions from Simmons University and is passionate about changing organizational cultures, increasing Black, Indigenous, people of color into leadership positions in the information and publishing industry. Dean Cawthorn is the current president of the Association of College and Research Libraries and remains positive about the future. Prior to joining WSULS, Cawthorn served as Dean of Libraries at West Virginia University. While in Morgantown, Cawthorn led an effort to remove WVU from their big deal in 2016. So now I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Cawthorn.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Oh,
great. Okay, just the thumbs up or nods, that'd be great. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you today. I've been really excited about your conference, Transforming Our Future, how our practices today inform our future tomorrow. And so I have 11 slides. It's going to be painless. We're going to talk a little bit about what I see for the future and why I'm so excited. And let me just move the slide forward and I'll give you an outline of what I'm going to talk about. First, I'm a very, very positive person. I'm going to tell you a story about that. I will illustrate that. I care deeply about this profession, and I would even say I love this profession. I love what we do. I know that all of you care deeply about what we do, and you are passionate about our profession. And so I'm talking to a bunch of friends here, a bunch of people who really understand how our profession is going to be super valuable in the future. And because it's in the future, I want to help us think about that a little bit. So let me tell you about a story from my home life that will help you kind of place the ideas that I'm going to share with you in context. Now, I'm 52, and my kids just actually left the house maybe like a year ago. And it was around the holiday time, and my wife and I were just like, this was going to be the first holiday we were going to be by ourselves. And, you know, if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. It's just kind of an awesome time to think about that. And I started thinking about, well, what if we had like this whole big screen TV, kind of, we wanted to watch movies and it would just be me and her, right? And we have a TV, and you know, but I was thinking like a big screen TV, right? And surround sound. And I talked to her about it, and she kind of nodded, and, you know, in the way we communicate, that meant she thought it was a good idea, maybe. But she's also known that I have a lot of these ideas. And so, you know, as the day was getting closer and closer, I talked to her about it more, and I thought, wow, you know, this could be really great. I'm going to come down the stairs in the morning and see this big screen TV. That's what I was thinking, right? So the day comes, and I come downstairs, and my wife had moved the couch we have closer to the TV we have. No new TV, no new anything. But if you experience these ideas that I'm talking about today in that kind of way, I think it's a good instructive thing to remember that a person really, really close to me that's been with me for 27 years just says, okay, well, we want to take what we have and move it closer to the television we have. So I think that's really a good story to remember about me.
honors for your graduation, right?
I'm hearing a
I
little
did
bit of
exactly what I was taught
feedback
to do
or
in preschool.
overview. Okay, so let's go forward to the next slide. So what I'm really going to talk about is how we can have courage and growth and failure and create a new culture in our libraries. I'm going to talk a little bit about why failure is very important to what we're doing, and that as adults, we learn by failing. But we don't like to fail, we don't, and particularly in our libraries, in the libraries I work in, I've worked in for a long time, academic and college and research libraries, community college libraries, they're so focused on making sure everything is perfect that we don't really focus on the failures that are very important. So I want to illuminate why that is and what are some structures that help develop the culture that we have. And once you've seen these things, I hope that you will not be able to unsee them. You'll actually be able to focus on conversations about things you want to do, and then you'll be able to do them. So let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's the good news. The libraries are needed now more than ever. You guys might know this on your campuses. Students really need the skills that we have. We just may need to think about how we connect with them in different ways. And I know that you all come from these different environments that are smaller, and you're very innovative and flexible and nimble on your feet. And we need you to help us in our profession be an example for how we actually do this innovation. I also think that reading and knowledge and information and facts, they are important, and they will be important going forward. But the issue is, again, is organizations that we work in and live in must be designed for people instead of, sort of influential leaders or power structures or a hierarchical. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Like there's the director, and the director can only have the decisions or only can have the ideas. We need an organization that will be able to allow people to share their ideas and try things. And that's what I mean by the failure. So when I say organizational culture, I mean a culture of what we believe. So what is it that we believe? And we can see this too in the way that we have our food systems or in our transportation systems. There are new ideas about electric cars and new ways to get around, but we're kind of, we have cars, we have gas, this is the way we do things, and we eat meat, and this is the way we do things. That's kind of what I'm talking about as it relates to the organizational culture. And if we can see that culture in our organization, you'll be able to see this culture in many other contexts. So next. So these are important questions to ask. Where does an idea come from? And how can we be innovative and creative? And can we work in a way that inspires all of us in the library, not just the dean or the director or the librarians, but the staff and everyone, maybe even the students, maybe even our alumni, maybe even the people that are actually coming into our library. So what practices are we doing today that are different than what we've always done? This is a very important question to think about as we go forward. So this next slide, I want to really focus on, because this is very important to understand. Above the iceberg, and this iceberg is the iceberg that sinks organizational change. This is always what happens to us. The way we say we get things done is up in the right-hand corner there. And you can see above, it's above the water, and it has vision and strategy and shared values and goals. All those things are important. All those things we say we want when we talk about organizational change. But the reality is that underneath the water in the left-hand corner is the way we really get things done. And it's the beliefs that we have, it's the shared assumptions, it's the procedures, the traditions, the unwritten rules. You know, when a new person comes into the library, and there's so many things that we have to tell that person about our culture and our library, that it's not written down anywhere. It's all in how we've perceived our decision making over time and what we've been able to do together, and stories and our feelings. These are the way we say these are the way we really get things done. And this was so transformational for me because it allowed me a way to think about what was happening in organizations, to be able to talk to people about it so they could see it. And once you're able to see it, then you're able to kind of make some changes and adjustments. And I think that's a really, really important thing. I remember when I started here at Wayne State, we had a culture of meeting together in the mid-level managers group. I don't know if you have similar groups in your context, but they're all like very important people in the library. And what I realized pretty quickly was that we were all just kind of information sharing. We weren't really talking about how an idea would grow and how we might work together to make something really come to fruition. So I said, what if we stopped doing this meeting and maybe we really thought about how we make decisions, or more importantly, where does an idea live in the organization? And if you heard an idea, like if you hear an idea at this conference, could you go back in your context and do it? And so that's what I really wanted to try to get at. And what we did was we redesigned this whole mid-level managers group meeting, and there were 24 people, and we actually worked for 4 or 5 months and then came back, and it was a new group of maybe 9 people, and we called it the Library Vision Support Team. And the Library Vision Support Team was really designed to help us think about the ideas that we want to do in the library and how we might grapple with that to begin to start that. Now, one of the first ideas that they had was to have a rooftop garden on one of the buildings at Wayne State. Now, colleagues, even I had anxiety about that idea, right? And so I had been there a very short period of time, and I could have gone to the group and said, you know, colleagues, I am about ideas, but I'm not really about that idea. And what kind of environment would that have created if I'd have said that? So I even have to say to myself, or leaders that think about this, what kind of language are we using to create environments for ideas? And I said to them, I said, well, why don't you go back and talk to the person and see if the rooftop garden idea could be some other kind of idea. I had worked with the staff and librarians on a new vision for the library that related to student success and retention, scholarship, community engagement, and organizational development. So organizational development was built into what we wanted to do. And about 3 weeks later, they came back and they said, hey, you know what? We want to start a seed library. A seed library. That is really awesome. That is really a great idea. But see, I tell that story because it really is about me and how I orientate myself to failure, or to rethink something I thought I knew. I thought I knew that the rooftops at Wayne State leak. There's no way that one idea could work. So, you know, I was really trying to protect and save them from the hassle of doing that. But when you're talking about ideas, there's many ways that you can think about an idea that it can actually work. So if you hear an idea, I guarantee you it's going to be the craziest idea you ever heard. And if you're able to work through that to allow more conversation, you might get to your seed library. And that's really what I think is really important about this graphic and the experience that I had even as a leader, trying to make sure that we're creating an environment for ideas. This is a very, very difficult thing to do. It's not easy. Okay, that's why I'm talking about it. I'm trying to tell you I've made mistakes. I've not, but we work in a profession that it's okay. Let's create a culture where failure is okay, and that we look at things and we evaluate them and we say, okay, that didn't work, but why didn't it work? I remember I went to Harvard, and we love Harvard, of course, and they had low morale, and they said, John, come in and talk to us about how we can fix our low morale and fix. Well, I don't know that I can do that, but I can share with you what I'm doing at Wayne State. And I said, when we talk about an idea and we come together and we talk about it for like 18 months, 12 to 18 months. Why is it so long? And that whole crowd, like 400 people, started laughing. And I said, why is that funny? Why is that funny? That should not be funny. Let me tell you what's happening at Wayne State. We are going to do that idea that you're talking about for 18 months. We're going to do that idea 4 times in the time it takes you to do it once. And by the time it 4 times comes around, we'll have learned a lot about that idea, either to do it again or to change it. You see, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is a fearlessness about the idea and really saying, you know what, we're going to try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we need to have examples in our field in this particular time of pandemic and so much change. I've just been so amazed by all the faculty that have gone online to teach their classes. They did that at Wayne State in 2 weeks, colleagues. So, we can change. And the things that people say we can't change, I would just push back on and say, we can change them. It's just what we believe. And our values in our profession are super, super strong. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to, as president of ACRL, I wanted to talk to you about ACRL's core commitment. This is also something I'm very passionate about, because we are identifying how to create diverse and inclusive communities in the association and in academic and research libraries. So when I talk about this and the slide I just talked about, how can we work together to include more people that are diverse in our context? Now, in this case, I meant the Diversity Alliance. We started the Diversity Alliance at West Virginia University, and now it's grown to many organizations. Now, you might say, well, we don't have the funding to hire a dedicated person, but you do have maybe the possibility of hiring diverse students that work in the library. And we know that students actually go on to library school based on their experience in the libraries. So could we also create something that tells the students, workers in the libraries, and gives them more context about this wonderful, noble profession that we're in? As I think the world of what we do. And if they had more context, then they would also see this too, and then be gone off to the profession. So the next slide just talks a little bit about how the Diversity Alliance has grown. And all these folks kind of agree to hire a resident in the first 2 to 3 years. And these institutions are saying that they want to be a part of this national effort. We've really tried to do this in various contexts. I was a resident 30 some years ago at Ohio State. So this is an idea that we just bring back, but this is not the only idea that we need to have. This is but one. And so we need more people to come and be curious and say, how can we begin to change this and inspire people that are diverse to come into our profession? So there are several frameworks that I think I wanted to leave you with before I get to questions. See, I told you it's going to be painless. First is the Nibble theory. And this book is about leadership and self-empowerment and personal growth. It was written by Khalil Jameson, and she is a West Virginian. She was one of the first African-American women in corporate America. And she wrote this book back in 1996. But it's timeless in the way it talks about what happens to people in organizations We're all meant to be bright lights and big as circles, right? And what happens when we come into organizations is sometimes we get bites taken out of us, so our circle then fits into the area that we need to be in for the organization to work. Yeah, right? Is everybody following me? We need people to be bright lights, bright as they can be, and big as they can be. And this book is a very short book. I'm not giving War and Peace. I'm not recommending War and Peace. It's just a very short book, but it really helps you think about what happens in the organization and what is the experience of people. This is not just about diverse people. It's about everyone. What is the experience of everyone in the library organization? And if we get present to this kind of stuff, I guarantee you we'll be able to actually do some really fantastic things as far as innovation and new ideas. And it's so important now because there's so much uncertainty in our world right now. And if we're able to focus on this, I think it is the vehicle to get to this innovation that we want. We need to calm people down and say, maybe we can be more flexible with schedules, but we need to be talking about the things that are going to position our organization within the context of higher education. Appreciative inquiry is a positive revolution and change, but what it also does is it asks questions, good questions, positive questions about what are we good at? What are we doing well? And what can we do more of as we think about the ways to be helpful? So I encourage you to read that book as well, as you also begin to think about planning for doing work in the context of your institution. Next slide. So here's my big wish for all of you during this conference. I hope that from this day forward, you're able to question your culture as I described in that diagram. I hope you are able to examine your own beliefs. That's very important. As my story said, my belief said that this idea couldn't be done, but I had to change what I thought I believed about the idea to get the seed library. That idea wouldn't have happened had I not had I acted on my first impulse, which was to say, oh my God, a rooftop garden, that cannot happen. That's crazy. So really examine your own beliefs. This is a very, very important point. I think individually and collectively, you have the courage not to nibble. And this is a reference back to the book. Our language is very important, and how we treat people in the organization is also very important. And so are you a person that really says no, or are you a person that says, no, we tried that idea 15 years ago, or we can't do that idea? No, if you're confronted with someone who's actually saying something a little bit different, try to be open and listen, and also try not to take nibbles out of them to make them fit into a context that you think they should fit in. We can get ideas from everywhere. Colleagues, I know I'm a dean and a director. The ideas should not all come from the dean. We need organizations that actually help foster ideas, and they can come from anywhere. And I think that leads me to sort of developing a new attitude towards failure. This is like super important for us to do, especially in a time of such uncertainty. It's very, very important. And what would happen if we did fail? I just wanted to ask that question. Okay, what if we had practices today that inform our future tomorrow? What if we change some of those practices just to try things out? What if you, in the state of North Carolina, said, you know what, we're going to try this idea up here, and we're going to try this idea down here, and you come together in your conference and you say, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, but we begin to create opportunities to talk about how this failure actually worked, and that what I'm hoping is that you'll be actually really, really excited about learning about these different ways that we might do our work, but it's all based on the foundation of failing. Okay, so having a new attitude towards that. And I think these things will then lead to changes in the environments where you can sustain innovation and change. And that's what we need in our field more than anything. Is for examples. So I would encourage you to write about it. I would encourage you to tell people about it. That's what you're doing in this conference, which I'm so honored to be invited to give a keynote for. So I hope you really take these words to heart. And I have one slide left for questions. And this is, of course, the Lorax, and they are very insightful. And unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's really not. And this goes to the individual, of course. And as the individual really considers this, then we can go to the organization and we can have conversations about what is the organization doing to create opportunities for individuals in there. And I just hope you're going to be able to find that there's infinite possibilities for us as a profession, and we're going to do wonderful things. I sometimes say we're going to save democracy. That might be a little bit too much. You might say, well, that we're going to move the couch we have closer to the television we have. We're not going to go that far, John. But I think that we are very, very important to students and to our alumni and to faculty that we work with. And we can change. We can help them. So that's what I wanted to say to you all this morning. And I'm just, again, really honored to be here. And I would be happy to take questions if we have time.
Thank you, Dr. Cawthorn. That was wonderful. And I'm here to help monitor the chat, and Beilapan is here as well. So if anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can put it in the chat. Any questions are welcome.
I have a question. I've been waiting for this presentation for a while, since we talked to you a long time ago. But my question is, what do you do to start getting people to think differently? You know, you even have to start yourself to think differently. So what are the kinds of things that you did to get them to start thinking differently? And I know you obviously ran into some kind of opposition.
Oh, my
Can
goodness.
you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think the opposition is just kind of, it's embedded in the way I think about change. So, you know, this story of me having to work through this idea that came out of a process that we created. So the decision made, how are decisions made in your library? This is really important. Who can make decisions in your library? Because there's not just the people that have titles, there's also influential leaders. And those people need to also be included in the conversation. So the overarching one is start by, what I did was I started with, how are we making decisions? And what are those decisions that we're making? Another element to the story that I told about the changing the mid-level managers group is that we also, because we had 24 people, we had an associate dean that ran the meeting that said, now you have 2.5 minutes to give your presentation. But there were more people that had anxiety about, what do I share in 2.5 minutes about what we're doing, as opposed to why we're doing that. And can we come to that group to ask for help and assistance about any one of those ideas? So that's where I really saw, I attended that meeting probably 3 times. And it was actually pretty painful to watch, because it was just them trying to share the idea or share what they were trying to do. And nobody was really listening because they were so anxious about their turn to share whatever they were trying to. So I think asking the right questions, and those 2 books will help ask the right questions. The Positive Revolutionary and Change, the Appreciative Inquiry, those are all questions built on the positive things that we do, and how can we do more of that? So it's not from a deficit model. right? It's not from, oh, we are so busy, John. Oh my God, we're so busy. We don't have time for this. I said, well, here's another way to frame it. How about we look at our work so that we're excited about it? And if you ask people, are you excited about the work that you're doing? Then I think they're professionals. Let's treat librarians as professionals. And as professionals, you make decisions about how you do your work. Now, I'm going to tell you, even a pandemic, you've been home juggling all the things you've been juggling and still getting your work done. Librarians have been working hard in the remote context. Okay, so we can do this. We can do this. And as you make those choices, you're going to make choices that are different than what you've always done. But you're also going to make choices about what you're not going to do anymore. And this is really important because at the end of the process, what I hope is that we'll have lots of people excited about what they see. And in my context, Laura, our librarians are now really interested in assessment. They're really interested in project management. They're interested in grant writing and fundraising. They're interested in these larger concepts. Also, when George Floyd happened, when George Floyd was murdered, we had a process in the library to talk about how does the library work relate to social justice. And when we got together to talk about ideas, we actually had an archivist come up with the idea that we should work with the Detroit Can Breathe organization, which is different than other organizations, but they're really designed to help build awareness of social justice issues. And we're going to work with them because we have one of the best archives in labor history in the world. And so how can we help activate those collections in a way that would inform them? So it's a great question. And I'm not here to say that people wouldn't say that this idea is a bad idea, but if you agree with that, if you allow people to say, this is a bad idea and we shouldn't try it, then where do you go? It's hard to try anything. So you just have to say, listen, colleagues, this is going to sound like Dr. Cawthorn says, even he did not like the idea. Okay. But what did he do? What did he do? He did not impede the process. He said, it's about ideas, go talk, be open. And then that's when it came back to Seed Library, you see? And I don't think it would have turned out that way if I would have been different. You see what I mean? So it's really important to convey that this is about leadership. It's about ideas, but it's also about understanding organizational dynamics in a way that could allow people to work in a different kind of way. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Is there anybody else that has any questions? You can put it in the chat.
I can't see the chat. So
yeah, I don't see anything in the chat right now, but if anybody wants to pop a question in there, you can, or unmute yourself like Laura did and ask. This is a great opportunity to get some feedback.
Good morning, Dr. Cawthorn. Yeah, this is Avelapon from Fayetteville State. Actually, Ms. Johnson said I'm waiting for your presentation. It is great, awesome. And I have a quick question. During this pandemic situation, I know change is constant, it's inevitable, but the transformation is by conscious choice, right? So how you make others, your colleagues or your department or your friends, how you make others like making a positive impact with your positive energy. I think you talk about a lot about positive, effect, but could you give more details on that?
It's kind of exhausting to think about how you can be positive all the time, which is why we come back to this idea of self-care and really making sure that you're doing all the things that you keep sort of re-energizing you to come back. And then as you do those practices, you actually give people permission in your library to do those practices too. And in this time of pandemic, I'm going to tell you what's going to come out of this that I know is, first, we're going to have a different culture around remote work. We're also going to have a really deeper understanding of mental health, our own mental health, and why that's important. So if you as a leader or as somebody in the library who cares about these, if you talk about how you are orientating yourself to change and this moment, that's very, very important. If you also try to make policies that actually fit for people to do the work. Like, I think also what's really important now is that we have policies about how people do their work and practices of their schedules, that their schedules are something that they can get more comfortable in. We hear this idea of we want to get back to normal. Okay, well, colleagues, time out, time out. We don't want to, I don't want to get back to normal, okay? Because normal was not paying attention to social justice issues. Normal was not paying attention when George Floyd happened. And I'm here to tell you that was 10 years of people having police brutality against them, and we weren't paying attention. So, okay, now you just maybe more of the majority culture is coming to this present of inequality, and it's exhausting. Yes, it is. So how can we get you to be present with your schedule so you get more normalized in the way? But that's just the first part. The second part is, what are we talking about as far as what we're going to do together as a library in the context of higher education? And it's going to feel like, honestly, that you're in a box, going downhill. You can't see where you're going if you're in a box, and you're going to hit sharp corners. You're going to hit things that are not pleasant, and it's not going to be an easy path. But I guarantee you that once you get it going, the momentum of other people who now have the confidence that they have the trust to be able to share their ideas, that is what we need more than anything. We need to carve out spaces for people to come to this work who may not actually in the station that they're in. They've been nibbled on so much that they're just in that station and they're not going to come out. But we should view our organizations as launch pads to whatever they want to do in the future. And the irony is that if we are really present to how people feel and work, and if they feel welcome, valued, and respected in their organizations, they likely stay longer. So it's a great question. And if you feel the pushback, if you feel this, then you're doing the right thing. You're going in the right direction. And don't be swayed by the people who say that. Really just say, okay, there's probably three camps of people. There's the people that are really excited. There's the people on the fence. And there's people that I like to call angry at breakfast. They're the people just wake up like that. They just, and actually, just let me be clear, you can be angry at breakfast and be excited and in the choir by the end of the day, okay? It's very fluid. However, if you're in that station and you have influence on the organization and you say no, or you say, we can't do this because, we have to say, okay, we see what that is. We see what you're doing. And what we're going to do as leaders is we're going to stay with the people who haven't really decided what they want to do yet. And we're going to spend more time with the choir because, frankly, I get energy from the choir, and you should too as a leader. And so spend more time with the people who get it and who want to go. And encouragement is very, very important. And that's how you get the ideas. But it's a very, very important question. And I don't want to make it seem like I don't have challenges or frustrations. I just have decided that it's really much more important for me as a leader in this profession to be positive and to focus on the things that we can do instead of the things that we can't do. And I think that we're also very smart and we are very creative if given the opportunity to see what's possible, you see?
That's great. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Duff.
We have about 10 more minutes left. There's lots of comments agreeing and with your statements. We have One person that Christine Fisher mentioned, they have lots of great ideas at our library, but lots of interdepartmental projects. But the thing that is tough is limited funding when that is needed. That prioritizing can be a challenge.
Mhm.
And then we have a specific question too from Gerald Holmes. He just wanted to know if you can tell us 2 highlights about your year as ACRL president.
Oh, well, this is definitely a highlight, coming to talk to all of you and being a keynote. I think that, what's really been clear is just how much ACRL is important to the whole profession, to be able to say, this is what we want to do at a professional level. And I've been really, really honored and grateful to be able to be at the table at conversations about what does it mean to have a membership? What does it mean to be a part of something larger than ourselves? And that's been really, really wonderful for me. And then I think about, the time when I ran, it was a very different time. 2018, they asked me to run for vice president, and I won. So I was president-elect in 2019. And I think even if they would have told me that, you know what, you're going to experience something called a pandemic, and it's going to be super disruptive, and you're going to be challenged in this, I still would have said, you know what, sign me up, because I think that this profession is so valuable and so important that I think that I would love to be in this leadership role in a national context, to be able to champion all libraries. This is not just about the large ARL libraries, it's about all of us. And we need you in your context to be able to pilot different ideas that we could use in these other contexts. So that's what I'm saying to you today, is that don't think just because you are in this context, or I'm just a community college, or I'm just a small library. No. You can actually come up with maybe more ideas, and they can be better ideas. And then your ideas can say, well, how do we scale this to something a little bit larger? So it's very, very important. I think those are the things that I think about most. I'm also, of course, counting down the days when when Julie becomes president very, very shortly, and I'm past president. But I will always remember this time, and I think, and you will too. And I thank Gerald for that question very much.
Yes, this is Dale. Somebody in the chat for the office, and she needed some of your expertise. I got to start in a second, but if you wait till last minute, really disconnected. And I gave her your contact for the back one you get there. And you pointed out that she waited till last minute, so but she's super desperate. Just thought I'd give you the heads up. Her name is Kat. Okay, and she is looking for history of Christianity through different countries. So
I think we're having a hard time hearing you, Gail. If you wanted to put it in the chat, maybe you could. It's hard to hear you. Okay, so we might have lost Gail. I'm not quite sure. I wasn't quite able to hear.
Yeah, I couldn't hear Gail either.
Okay,
but
okay.
Just until Gail comes back or puts her question in the chat. I just wanted to thank Dr. Cawthorn for speaking. I really appreciated everything you said, and I just really my work at UNCW Wilmington. We have done so much work over the last year, and I think actually the pandemic really helped us in some ways, like the silver lining,
Mhm.
to really try and listen to everyone in the in our institution, because it was tough. Some of us had to go in, some of us were able to work from home. There was struggles with faculty and staff. We had some struggles, but there are ways to do things, and I think even internally, people were concerned about funding, and yes, that is a problem, an issue with libraries always, right? But I think that internally you can do things that don't cost any money, and with the pandemic, one thing we did was we had an internal kind of team Randall that would put together virtual get-togethers online, bingo games, show and tell with your pets. I mean, just whatever it was that you felt like you could come together with. And that really helps with morale. And then people feel like they can they're being listened to, right? So that makes a huge difference when it comes to changing the culture. And I just wanted to throw that out there. It takes time though.
No, it does absolutely take time. I think someone said that it takes a culture change about 4 or 5 years to make the culture change, which is what I ask leaders all the time. I said, well, do you work in a culture? And they all raise their hand. Yes, of course, John, we work in a culture. I said, well, do you know how culture changes? Fewer hands are up. And more importantly, I said, well, do you know what culture you want to have in the library longer term at the end of 5 years? And then I ask, do you know what decisions you're making today to move to that culture? Oh my God, silence. I get the hook, like they want to get me off the stage. It's so quick. But it's very, very important. If you don't understand the forces that are working in your organization, how are you going to actually create an environment that we say we want? And to this issue of funding, I will say that the more innovative and creative we can be and sustainable in that, it's not just the one idea, because a culture changes in 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So how can we do the innovations and changes that actually demonstrate our value even more? That's where the funding is going to come in. It'll be shocking, because right now, a lot of libraries have this way to say, well, we have so many volumes, or we have so many people that we help at the reference desk, or we have so many instruction sessions we have. I think all that's great, okay, but to take it up to another level, let's say, how does that work at the reference desk improve the student's ability to be successful longer term? Okay. How can we work in a way for people that are coming to college to help prepare them for what they might see? And then more importantly, how might we work with alumni to help them kind of navigate what they need to do for changing careers or starting a business? I think that our purview is much wider than we tend to think. We tend to think that our purview is just this 4 years, and sometimes we're disappointed. Oh my gosh, if I heard this line so many times. We have people in their final year, never been to the library before. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's not a failure necessarily. It is something that we have to really pay attention to. And maybe we can develop these ways that we can work with people. In a pandemic, there are students that haven't gone to school in a year and a half. So maybe there's something we can do, but then how do we measure that? So we worked with the students coming into your context, into your institution, at the end of their first year or their second year. Why don't we meet with them again? Why don't we say, what we gave you before you started, is that helpful to you? And then just listen, because that's where we're going to learn how we can measure our work as it relates to student success. And I talk with provosts and presidents, and here's the good news. There's also good news, is that their view of the library is very traditional. Okay. So you still have time to come up with these innovative ideas. They're not actually telling you have to do this. In some contexts, they are. They're saying, why are the books in the library? And you have to kind of explain that. But if you're constantly trying to figure out this question of student success and retention and connecting our work back to that issue, you're going to find funding is going to come to you directly, because now they see you as a different element at the campus. They see you as partners, and we already work with faculty, but we need to work in a more visible way. And that's what I'm kind of suggesting. And then also, just let's not think of our work in this 4 years or 2 years or however long you have them. Let's expand it out and think about how our work might be able to help people in a longer period of time, and then measure that. So when I say assessment, I'm not talking about collections. I'm saying assess whatever we would put together. You're all creative and smart. So whatever we put together, we're asking people, did that work for you? Was that helpful? Did that help you in your other classes? You know, my father, when I told him I wanted to go to library school, I was all nervous, you know, like any kid trying to figure out what they want to do in life. And I didn't know what he was going to say, but my father always says things that are just like, man, drop the mic kind of things. So he said to me, he said, well, son, it's great because you'll have the research skills to research another career if you don't like that one. Now, that story is important, because are we leaving the students that we touch with the skills that they need to research beyond the library, right? And of course, my dad was right, but how can we have a different view of our work and then measure that? That's, I guess, what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much. I think we've all really enjoyed your speech, and we're at our time limit. Unfortunately, I feel like we could go on and on, but I'm sure you have other things to do as well. So, but thank you so much, Dr. Cawthorn. We really appreciate it. This is a great start to our conference. So.
Great. Have a wonderful, wonderful conference, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.